Hello everyone, I am Bruce, and welcome to another video on Congress Weekly. Thank you for tuning in. As you have mostly likely heard, the latest COVID relief bill passed the House, then passed the Senate, but since the Senate made changes to it, the House has to vote on it again. That will take place on Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. Most likely, they will agree with it. They want to vote on this as soon as possible. One reason is a Democratic member of the House will most likely move to President Biden's team, thus one less Democrat in the House. Another reason is how soon unemployment will run out, which I believe is very soon. I still don't know all that is in this massive bill, but the big sellers are relief checks that will most likely help Americans and help unemployment benefits from expiring. Although the original bill from the House called for $400 a week payment, that was scaled back to $300 a week, but it will run until at least September 6th of this year. My opinion, it should have stayed at $400 per week, as passed by the House. Here is one part of the bill that sounds very odd. Those in the farming business will be forgiven 120% of a loan they may have, but it is based on race. There is $200 million for library services and $20 million for native language studies. Both of those sound fine to me, but again, what do they have to do with COVID relief? Once I hear more of what's in the bill, I will pass it along. No Republicans voted for this bill in the House or Senate. I am not crazy about what all is in this bill that I have heard of, especially the cost of which I will get into in a minute, but there are some items I like and wonder why some Republicans didn't vote for it. Republicans wanted a less costly bill that would have provided more to the point of COVID relief, but guess what? The Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. If you don't like what you are hearing come out of Washington, D.C., your next opportunity to make a change to it is coming up. You have heard me speaking of H.R. 1. This is the voting rights bill. There is a lot behind the curtain that you may not like. Depends if you are Republican or Democrat. But before you get all fired up, the bill did pass the House, but it has to pass the Senate, and it won't be by a simple majority, so chances are it won't pass. That is why I think President Biden signed an executive letter today, March 7th, covering what he could legally do with voter registration. On the surface, some of it sounds reasonable to me, like it orders federal agencies to expand access to voter registration. This next one gives me pause. Provides voting access and education to prisoners in federal custody. This next one is good. Examines barriers to citizens with disabilities voting. And this one is fine. Improves ballot tracking for overseas voters, including active duty military. He wanted to add more, but knew without Congress approval it was going to be stopped by a federal judge. Here is one more item that I want to cover before discussing our taxpayer funds, since Congress controls the purse strings. If you recall during my last video, I discussed about those who attended then President Trump's rally in Washington, D.C., followed by some of the crowd going to the Capitol or were already there. I received a comment from one of my viewers, and I like to have that all the time. It's great to hear from all of you. What I failed to mention, and it was important, as many people who did attend the rally, think about the other 72 million or so who didn't attend, but voted for President Trump. That is a lot of people. Even though the polls show more voted for President Biden, 74 million is not a small number. If you are one of them and feel your voice still needs to be heard, as I mentioned earlier in this video, you will have a chance to votes soon for new House and Senate members. I am not pushing one way or the other, but if you look at the numbers in both chambers, there is a slim margin favoring the Democrats. So don't think your vote won't count. It will, if you are in favor of changing the outcome of the House and Senate members' affiliation. In my opinion, it can quickly change to Republican controlled in both the House and Senate. Now let's talk about your pocketbook by taking a look at the national debt. Keep in mind, these numbers don't represent the latest $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill since it hasn't officially passed yet. I won't go over too many numbers, otherwise they will just blend together. But let's take a look at where we are heading as a nation. Some might think, what is the difference? We will always be in debt. Well, Venezuela thought that as well. At one time, Venezuela used to be the wealthiest country in South America. Then a crisis intensified under the Maduro government, growing more severe as a result of low oil prices in early 2015 and a drop in Venezuela's oil production from lack of maintenance and investment. Most critics cite an anti-democratic government, corruption, and mismanagement of the economy. And this is why we need to occasionally look at our national debt and where we are heading. I'm not saying Democrats or Republicans put us in this position. Both have. Our national debt today is approximately $28 trillion. Our tax revenue today is $3.4 trillion. Big difference. I will get more into the numbers in another video, but if you recall, there has been talk about why don't we pay off everyone's student loans. What they don't tell you is how much that is, and it keeps rising. Today, it is at $1.7 trillion. So, what are our top three big budget items over time that we are paying on? One is Medicare/Medicaid, which is at $1.3 trillion. Social Security is at $1.1 trillion. And defense is at $723 billion. Interest we have to pay on these three programs is at $395 billion and rising every second. And as I mentioned, these are only the top three largest budget items. We rely on people working and paying these taxes to help with this debt. Here's some research I did about national debt, and I quote, "One way to gauge the size of a country's national debt is compare it with the size of its economy, the ratio of the debt of the gross domestic product, the GDP. GDP serves as a measure of an economy's overall size and health, measuring the total market value of all of a country's goods and services produced in a given year. Our federal debt to GDP ratio was 107% late last year, and it went up to nearly 136% in the second quarter of 2020 with the passage of the coronavirus relief package. By comparison, Japan's ratio at the end of 2019 was higher at about 200%. The big consequence of deficit spending is that the fiscal burden shifts from one generation to the next. That's fine if the country's economy is growing because you know that the next generation will, on average, be better off than the current one and likely able to pay a little more in taxes to decrease the debt. But if a country's economy is slowing and economic growth rates are lower than they used to be, this starts becoming a more divisive issue." End quote. I'll finish with a sobering thought. Experts felt during COVID, which we are still in, that there would be a population baby boom. That didn't happen. In fact, it was just the opposite. Less babies were born. We are now in a deficit with our population. So the question is, if we don't have the population to replace us, at least equal to our population, who is going to help pay down our debt? On a positive note, all is not doom and gloom. America is strong and will most likely work its way out of this. We just have to be smart about it. Well, thank you for watching. Once again, a lot going on and to think about. If you like my videos under Congress Weekly, please click the thumbs up and subscribe. You can also leave your thoughts by using the email address shown below of the screen. Until my next video, please be safe.